2007 through 2012 Mazda CX-7 exterior door handle replacement. I'm Brian Esser from How to Automotive. I'm going to walk you step by step through the process of changing out that handle. So I ordered the handle through the dealer because it's painted. So if it's available, I will link it up. It comes complete as a whole assembly. As you can see, the old handle there, broken off. Check the link in the description for the parts, but most likely you'll have to go through your dealer. So our first step is to get the door panel off. So what you're going to do is right here in the armrest right here is going to be a screw. We're going to remove the Phillips screw right here. After that, behind the door latch here is a little panel. You need to use a pick tool and pick this little panel out, open it like this. And behind it will be a Phillips screw. Once you get this little portion of it pulled out, and you're going to remove that Phillips screw. After removing those two screws, you're going to use a panel popping tool and stick it underneath the door down here at the very bottom and pry outwards, and then you're going to pull, and it's held on a bunch of clips. So you're going to pop these clips outwards until the door panel starts pulling forward. Before we pop the door panel off, we need to pop this little molding here off. So you're going to pull at the top and then angle it and then pull upwards and it'll pop off. So you'll pull outwards at the top and pull upwards and then it'll come off. Now you can grab the door panel on the left and right side and lift upwards and then pull towards you, and the door panel will pop off the little lip. Now that you got the door panel off, you're going to disconnect the two cables going to the handle here, one for the handle, one for the lock. So you're going to reach around here and you're going to pull the cable outwards and then pull it out like this. And you let it hang down, and then there's going to be another cable just above it. Do the same thing. You're going to pull upwards and rotate it, and then it should pop out of the door lock. After you get the two cables disconnected, then you're going to disconnect the electrical connector here. There's a little tab you're just going to push and then pull the electrical connector off. Try not to pull from the wires itself. Try to pull from the connector and then pull it out like this. Now just below it is going to be the main master power window switch right here. We need to unplug that. I wanted to remind you, I forgot to mention it, is to have the windows rolled up before you do this. So I took the door panel off and I forgot to roll the window up. So go ahead and make sure that window is rolled up before you disconnect that switch. After you get the window rolled up and the switch disconnected, go ahead and set the door panel aside. Now we're going to remove the window regulator portion of it here. So we're going to remove all these 10mm screws falling around this big black panel here. So just remove all the 10mm screws. If you see any of the tools that I'm using and are interested in them, I'll leave links for them all in the description of the video. So go ahead and follow around the perimeter and remove all the 10mm bolts. You're going to also want to unplug the electrical connector right here. So after removing all the bolts in the perimeter, there's going to be some 10mm bolts in the middle here we're going to remove, and also a plastic clip here at the top. I also went ahead and unbolted the motor, but I did not unplug it. I left it bolted up. Now you can pull the regulator kind of towards you, and I just let it hang down. Now what we need to do is get this foam pad out of here, and right behind it is the door lock handle and all the locking mechanisms we need to disconnect. While I was looking in here, I noticed some of the broken pieces. If yours has a bunch of broken pieces, I just retrieve it from the door or else it'll rattle. While I was inspecting, I can also see that the main handle rod here is where it broke off on mine. So you're going to want to disconnect these and pop these little rods off like that. But the first thing we're going to do is get the foam pad out of the way. It's much easier. I also removed this little black plug so you can look through there and see what you're doing when you're doing this. So go ahead and remove the 10mm bolt right in the center of the foam pad here. Once you get that removed, you can pull the foam pad out. And then right behind it is actually one of the bolts for the handles. Before we disconnect the handle, we need to pop these two rods off. So these little plastic clips will pop over, and then you pull the rods out. This one here was the bigger rod. We went to the main handle, which is broken off. Then also we're going to remove this 10mm bolt right here. Remove that bolt. To get to that, I just used a ratcheting wrench right here, a 10mm, and went ahead and backed that bolt out. After you get that bolt backed out, there's going to be another 10mm bolt right above it. You're going to remove that one right there. I used a 10mm socket and a 1/4-inch ratchet to break that bolt free. Once you get that bolt removed, this lock cylinder portion of it will come out. In my case, it just fell out, but you should be able to twist it about a 1/4 turn clockwise and then pull outwards, and this portion of the lock cylinder will come out. And you can set this aside. We're going to reuse this. After removing the second 10mm bolt to the right, then you can just push the remaining portion of it out like this, and the whole handle will come out. Now we're going to take the new handle assembly and slide it in like this at an angle and feed the handle portion of it into the door like this. So you have to kind of angle it a little bit and then twist it downwards until it fully seats. And once it's fully seated, now we're going to go back on the opposite side there. Now we can go ahead and start the 10mm bolt right here. They had the little stud on it. So go ahead and start that bolt there. So when I'm doing these, I like to just start these bolts by hand and leave them loose until I get the other bolt started. And then after I get them both started, I'll tighten them all up. So I'm using the old part here as a reference on how to start the lock cylinder right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the lock cylinder portion of it and install it into the handle, which is inside the door. But I'm going to use this as a reference. So what we do is we put it in here like this, and then you rotate it counterclockwise until it locks into place. So it goes about a quarter turn counterclockwise and it locks in. There's these little ears right here on the lock cylinder that match up right here. So you'll put it in like this and you'll twist it counterclockwise. And once you counterclockwise, then you'll be able to see the bolt right there. You can start. So we're going to do that inside the door. So I wanted to show you that on the floor there, that way, because it's no room for me to get the camera up in there. So and my hands in there at the same time. So I went ahead and put it in there. And once you get it twisted into place, then you can go ahead and start that 10mm bolt right there at the top there. So you're going to go ahead and start that bolt. And then once you got that bolt started, you can go ahead and tighten the 2 bolts holding the handle down. Earlier I showed you that I took that little plug out right here, and the reason why is so I can look through it to see what I'm doing. So after we get that bolted down, now we're going to reinstall the rod. So the smaller rod goes into the one with the pink handle into the lock cylinder. So you push it in there and then you flip the little door over until it locks onto the rod and won't pop back off. After that, you can take the larger handle here rod that goes into the handle portion of it, push it through, and once you get that pushed in, then you'll flip the little plastic catch over, and now the rods are secured to the handle. Now we can go ahead and reinstall that foam pad back in. So you go ahead and put the foam pad back in and put the bolt back on and tighten it up. Now we're going to lift the window regulator portion back up into position and start the bolt. So I lifted it up into position and started 1 bolt on the far left corner there, and then that gave me enough maneuverability to maneuver it around to start the rest of the bolts, including the window regulator. So I had to reach under the bottom and help line up the window regulators and pull the portion of it through where the 2 bolts in the middle are. There are 2 10mm nuts, so I went ahead and started those bolts there. And there, after I got those 2 started, then I went ahead and lined up the window regulator portion of it right here. It goes where the motor plugs into it. And I also reached around, pulled it forward and reached around back to help line up that portion of it with the motor. So I reached around back like this, started the, once I got it lined up, I went ahead and started all 3 of the bolts for the window motor. And then I went ahead and run those in. And then I went around the perimeter, lined up all those bolts and started all the 10mm bolts. And once you get them all started, you can go ahead and tighten them down. You also want to make sure the 2 rods are routed right up to the top right here. There's also going to be 1 little plastic clip here at the top that we need to reinstall that goes in there. So you put it in and push it in. Now you can go ahead and make sure all those are tightened up, and then you put the rubber plugs back in. And then on my door panel, some of these little clips didn't come out of the door panel, so you need to pop those back out and reinstall them onto the door panel. After that, I just double checked that the wiring that's supposed to be plugged into the window regulator and stuff is all plugged back in. And now I'm going to put the rods back onto the door panel. I'm going to walk you through this process of that. So one's for the lock and one's for the handle itself. So the black one here is for the lock, and that goes on top. So what we're going to do is we're going to lift the door panel up. You kind of have to hover it up, and then you're going to reach around back like this, and you're going to hook the rod into the panel. So if you look, you can see the little slot where the rod goes into. So once you get it hooked in there, then you'll swing it over, and then you'll put it into the little bracket right here, and you'll push until you hear it click into place. Now we're going to hook the white cable up, which is the one for the handle. So you're going to hook it through, just like you did the top one here. You'll hook it into the slot, then you'll swing it over until it lines up with the handle portion here, and push it in until you hear it click and locks into place. Now you want to make sure all the switches are plugged in, the electrical switches, and also for the door lock here too at the top. Now we're going to hook the door panel over the edge of the door frame at the very top here and push it downwards once it's hooked over the top. Then now what I do is I look through the side and I look at these little plastic clips and I look for the hole on the door, and I line it up and then I push them all in with my hand. I just tap them in. Once you get them lined up, you can tap them in. After that, we can go ahead and reinstall the Phillips screw here, and then the Phillips screw right behind the handle here. Now we're going to put this trim piece in. It has a hook on the bottom, hooks on there, and then you rotate it upwards and then push it until it locks onto place. Now we can pull the handle back and put the little plastic cover that went back here, just line it up and push it in until it clicks into place. Now you're just going to test the door lock, the handles, everything. You're gonna do a test on everything. Make sure everything is working. You want to test the windows, everything, and the outside handle. You want to test it with the key, and you also want to test it with the remote. Make sure that everything is working the way it was before. And that'll complete the job of replacing the outer exterior door handle on a Mazda CX-7. I'm Brian Esser from How To Automotive. I'd like to thank you guys for watching my videos. Encourage you to subscribe. Invite you to head over to the howtoautomotive.com website for more valuable videos like this. Thank you again for watching.